The key to any great science fiction name lies in suffixes. For example, you could turn any humdrum name like Nebuchadnezzar into Nebuchadnezzar. This also applies to other names, such as the name of the podcast known as
Trapped Under Plasticatus, the podcast where the takes are hot and the tendies are not. I like that's a good one.
I was seeing if you were going to say trapped under planist, but
that could have been good. I was trying to think of one of those suffixes. So I can't even say that word. Yeah, I tried. The stutter betrayed me. You haven't seen Gentlemen Broncos? Do yourself a favor and watch it by yourself first and then with your family.
All right, Scotty. What's the happy hap? What's going on?
The happy hap? Oh, the happening?
Yeah.
My neighbors found out, dude.
What did they find out about? I saw that last night, and I was kind of like, down in the basement by myself, seeing things, and I was like, what did they find out? And I'm like, okay, here's my thought. We had a slight camera whoopsie boos, so if we lost video for a little bit there, you'll forgive us, but we're back, don't worry. Okay, so I have predictions of what I think your neighbors found out on. Okay, first one. Okay, they found out you play Lorcana.
Yeah, they'd be all upset by that for sure.
That's not it?
That's not it.
Okay, they found out you don't clean up your dog's poop in the backyard.
Do you?
Occasionally.
Nope, that's not it.
That's not it. They found out that you hate them and you talk bad about them.
Ooh, no. That could be one, though. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's not that.
All right. Let me know. What is it? What did they find out?
They found out, so I was walking my dogs, and then I saw this guy come down the street, older fellow. Never spoken to him once in my life. The most interaction I've ever done with him is kind of waved.
Yeah, you neighbor wave, walkie wave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then from 30 feet away, he hails me, and he's like, I heard you're the Miniac. And I was like, oh, no.
Oh, no.
So then we had a conversation about the YouTube channel and what I do for a living and how he used to paint model airplanes and stuff like that. And had always wanted a Badger airbrush and all this stuff. Had an extended conversation with this guy I've never spoken to. I lived there for 11 years.
How far a neighbor away? Is he a couple houses down? Or?
He's he's on the other side of 2 houses down.
So that's close.
Super close.
That's super close.
And then the same thing happened with his wife a couple days later, saying that she said I was internet famous or something like that. So what I heard was that they got together, my neighbors, at the block party, and someone told them that.
Talked about you.
Yeah. So they didn't mention any names, but they all figured out and started talking to me. So I'm wondering who else is going to mention it, on a dog walk or something like that.
Yeah, it's bound to come up now.
Yeah.
I've had to have that conversation 3 or 4 times with different neighbors. And the two.
Have they discovered you on YouTube?
No, but the closest neighbors, I knew from where I worked before, and some of the nearby neighbors I did, and then I think a similar situation. It's just little hens in the hen house. They're just out there clucking to each other, and they're like, "Hey, I heard you're a YouTuber.
I heard you sit in your basement all day, do nothing."
Yeah, do nothing. And so it's good when you have somebody that has some frame of reference.
Yeah.
But most people, they just kind of look at you with these blank eyes, and you're like, I'm speaking another language to you, aren't I?
Yeah.
I try not to get into it very deeply, because I'm like, you're not going to understand what the hell I'm talking about. So it's a matter.
Yeah. But they were totally fine conversations. But yeah, I'm just curious. I'm curious who told them and who else knows.
Did you you were getting a little sweaty and you accidentally spilled the beans? You're like, yeah, we play Lorcana. I'm sorry.
No.
Now you know my dirty secret.
That did not come out.
Oh, okay. Oh shit, I had stuff, didn't I?
You have stuff.
Oh yeah, it was my birthday this week.
Hey, happy birthday!
It's your birthday. Yeah, we had fun. We went to. This kind of ties in. My parents took me out for dinner.
And they took you to play whirly ball.
They did not take me to play whirly ball. My parents, they took me out to dinner. We went to Chinese food because there's a really nice sit-down Chinese restaurant I really like. When I say really nice, I don't mean it's really expensive. I just mean it's good Chinese food.
Yeah.
And as we've all learned over COVID. Chinese food is not something that carries out well and get it delivered to your house. You know,
It doesn't?
You take it, you bring it home. There's something in them cardboard boxes. If there's any kind of like crispy thing in there, you know,
yeah.
like you got a real short lifespan. But when they go right on that plate and right into you, so much better. So we did that. We also went to the Renaissance Festival.
Oh, yes.
The Minnesota Renaissance Festival. My wife and daughter had never been.
Oh, nice.
I haven't been in about 15 years, I think.
Holy crap, dude.
I know, but that was, which is odd because I went every year for at least a decade.
Yeah.
And so this is the Minnesota Renaissance Festival, which is, I believe, the second largest in the nation. Do you know what state has the largest?
Wisconsin.
No.
It's Wisconsin.
Is it?
Well, maybe I don't know. What do you think it is?
It's Texas.
Okay, yeah.
It shouldn't be a surprise. Yeah. The Minnesota Renaissance Festival is, and actually I think it's the longest running too.
Okay.
In the whole country. There's a dude there that I remember since I was a little kid that there's like 2 trees and and there's a stage set up and he like juggles and he goes on a high wire and he starts everything on fire. At one point, he is standing on a ladder. The ladder is on a rope, which is like a zip line rope. So man on ladder on rope with a thing on his chin that's holding up a cone, that's holding up a balloon, that's holding up spinning torches on fire, and he's juggling torches on fire.
Right.
Also, the rope and the ladder are on fire, and his daughter shoots a blow dart at the balloon, pops it, and he's got to catch the torches.
Yeah.
That dude he said he was 61 or 62 years old. He had been doing this at the Minnesota Renaissance Festival for 42 years.
I wonder what that level of balance achieves you in life outside of that stunt, obviously.
He says he does that, like that's what he does for a living.
Is he like Jason Bourne, you know? Like,
Yeah, that's true.
What else can you do?
Also, this dude
balance.
being like early 60s, he looks like 5 years older than me. So whatever he's doing,
Okay.
the dude is like, I'm like, man, I would not have guessed he's early 60s. I would have guessed late 40s, early 50s.
Yeah.
So I
It
mean,
was always so awesome to watch. I love the live shows at Ren fairs. I feel like every local town that had a Ren fair has like propaganda in that town. It's like, this is the biggest one ever.
yeah.
Because I heard that my Ren fair in Bristol, Wisconsin, like my small town that I was in, was like one of the bigger. I don't know if it's older or whatever it is, but it was awesome. It was bigger and had a lot of attractions, and they have like a permanent setup with like, you know, buildings that are themed after the time period.
Yeah.
And like it's a massive like area. Not as big as like the Minnesota State Fair, obviously, but
Have you been to the Minnesota Ren Fest?
I have one time. Yeah.
Oh.
It was awesome. It definitely reminded me
go
a lot
again.
of it. Yeah.
So I freaking loved it, and it's probably, gosh, I want to say twice as big, but it's a lot bigger than the last time I was there 15 years ago.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
so many stages to watch, so many shows, and there's so much stuff to buy. But the problem is now
A lot
there's
of
like,
sick, cool, awesome stuff to buy too.
dude, so the food and drink there is not expensive.
No?
No, it's cheaper than like the county fair, like when you go to places. It's cheaper than if you're obviously on any kind of like vacation destination place where the prices are jacked up because of that. So the food is not expensive, but there's a bazillion of these artisan shops. And they're all, the cool thing is by and large, it's all stuff that's handmade stuff. You know, they throw their own pottery. So if you want a mug, my wife bought a spoon rest for your stove.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a hand spun thing. And, you know, whether it's clothes, whether it's leather goods, there's so many fucking leather goods.
Weapons.
You have weapons and armor.
Yes.
Oh, I looked at some swords. I was like, do I really need to spend $2,500 on this sword today?
Yes.
The fact that I sat there, I was like,
You're like, I could.
I could do this. I could fucking run someone through with this sword for this price. Because those things, like the swords from the handful of places there that I really appreciate, they're all working pieces of weaponry.
Yeah.
Meaning you could fucking go to battle with those. You know, you can cling bastard sword on bastard sword out in the field, and there's going to be no dents.
In the field.
Battle. I watched the jousting. You know, I watched.
Always gotta watch jousting. Yeah.
They have elephants there that you can ride. And that's
elephants.
yeah. It's always kind of sad, but they seem pretty happy. But I saw an elephant pee, and I just sat and watched that elephant pee. Dude.
Just check out that donger.
Bro, they pee so long.
Waterfall.
And it's so much. I shouldn't be surprised, but
No, they're like fucking 20 times the size of us.
yeah. But like everything at the Renaissance Festival in the artisan shops is expensive, which understandably so. When I told you it was a $2,500 sword, I'm not exaggerating. Like you spend thousands of dollars.
Birthday present?
Yeah. So this leads us to our part in the story where
Our part? Wait, what?
this is the part in the story where I had regret. So
no.
I bought my daughter a bunch of different fun things that she wanted. I bought her sweet leather pouch. I bought her this whistle, this little clay whistle that looks like a bird, and you put a little water in it, and it makes sounds like a bird when you blow in it.
Oh, yeah.
That was really cool. We got a bunch of food and stuff. But anyway, we're in this shop, and it was a leather worker, and they made all custom hats. And there wasn't prices on anything. And so I'm like, fuck.
Never a good time.
And they were amazing quality. They were awesome. And I saw this big fucking wizard hat, and I was like, this is the coolest goddamn thing I've ever seen. And I didn't buy it. I didn't even ask him how much it was. And as we were driving home, I said, Self, you deserve a wizard hat. So I found their store on Etsy.
Oh, nice.
And I ordered a $300 wizard hat.
That was your present to yourself.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, but my explanation was, so I was like, gosh, that hat was so cool. And we're driving back. My wife's like, if you used it in a video as a character, that's a business expense.
Of course. Absolutely.
And I was like, we could use a new character.
Absolutely could use that.
Dude, fucking, and it was at that moment that John Dolph was born.
John Dolph. John Dolph. What's the color?
John Dolph, the yellow snow.
Just a drunk wizard.
Yeah. Hey, listen here. I want to throw a fireball. All right, that's all I got. What do you got?
Yeah, all right. I can't remember. I wrote down.
You're a Jimmy.
Okay, so for 4 days, I had a gentleman from Texas come shadow me in this office. His request was to learn how to make a YouTube video start to finish and all the skills and knowledge therein, which is obviously a lot of stuff. And he also wanted to learn how to paint something. And so my plan, so that he could see it all, was that we would make a video together. And so one of the things he wanted to learn how to do was how to paint a face. And so we took some faces, 2 identical faces from his Necromunda gang, his Orlok gang. And we painted the face at the same time. And I basically explained to him how I paint a face. And then I was watching him paint and kind of just telling him whenever he was kind of messing up in very small ways that are kind of hard to describe.
You go, no.
Exactly.
No.
Slap on the wrist a little bit.
Did you have a ruler?
I didn't. I should have took that red noob ruler from the
old.
Oh
yeah.
You
Just
know?
the whippy sticks?
Yeah, dude, whippy sticks. And it was actually an awesome experience for us both because he went from disliking and kind of not being afraid, but not looking forward to painting faces to genuinely loving the process and wanting to paint another one immediately after. So that was amazing for me because on YouTube, you kind of make a video and you see a lot of comments, people saying this is a great video and stuff like that. But to have that immediate in-person feedback from someone saying this is really helping me, it's making me change my perspective on a thing I didn't like previously. That was really good for me. It was helpful to know that things I was saying were helpful to that person. And then I also asked for a bunch of questions from my YouTube community. And so while he was painting, because I was a little bit faster than him, I was also answering some of their beginner questions as well. So that was a really cool video to do with him. But that was helpful for him to see okay, we have a concept for a video. How are we going to title and thumbnail it? Who's the target audience? Okay, now every single decision we make about the video is going to be colored by that target audience. Let's produce it. Let's film it. Here's all the tech. Here's all the SD cards, power, light, audio. Then we brought it into the editor, did a lot of that, shot some stuff on the B-roll set. I showed him how I edit. For the most part, we didn't finish editing the video because I had to pivot to this video. And then I showed him how I export videos for archival at the very end. Showed him the whole process, got to paint a face, And it was really awesome. It was a good experience for us both, I think. So he had about 4 days, and then he left.
I think that's the best way to actually teach someone, I mean, anything, but I was like, I can't believe I didn't even like kind of think about that. I'm like, oh yeah, he'll come here, and then you're working on a thing you're working on, and you just walk them through all the stuff you're doing. It's like, no, you come here, we're making a video.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, that's the way to get, like, you have to dig in and get knee deep, and then you'll understand, because he's a part of the everything from concept to all the process, make his brain go through those cycles that you go through.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I've never done that before ever. I don't plan to do it maybe like, anytime soon again, but I think it worked out pretty well. He had like a list of expectations that I had him draft up before he showed up to make sure that I could like teach him everything he wanted to learn.
Yeah.
And they were all things that I felt like I knew about and could speak to, and so I felt confident, and then we kind of went for it, and it worked out.
Cool. I dig it. That's a pretty fun experience. I'm sure a nice breath of fresh air into your work week too.
Definitely, I changed it up a little bit.
Let's see here. I want to talk about FDM printing.
Yeah, dude. I would love to get an FDM printer and like learn how to use them.
So my daughter and I put it together. We went through the instructions. This is a Bamboo Labs A1 printer, if you care. And because they're sponsoring an upcoming video.
Nice.
And I'm like, this is an excuse for me to really kind of dig in, because my experience with FDM printers is about a decade old now, back when they were fairly new, and Sexy Teeth Joshy got one, and his dad got one too, and they were broke more than they were working. I still think that's entirely likely, just because it's the process of like melting and spooging out the little plastic. But the quality of what was then versus what the quality of this stuff makes now is, there's still layer lines, and I went down a whole rabbit hole of like cleaning and like sanding and like what's the most efficient way to clean these things up. But like for buildings, because I'm doing like this kind of like rickety Mordheim style, just like low fantasy Renaissance period like buildings and stuff. There was a crooked man in a crooked house kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so I found this awesome, it's called Hexengard, and I actually reached out to the dude on my mini factory, because like his buildings are so freaking cool, and they're multi-level, and you can like, they're multi-prints, but then each print is a different level of the building, so you can open it up.
Of it?
Yeah, you can open it up and stuff, which is awesome for D&D. And then for every building that they have, there's also a ruins version of that building, where it's like, it's been this corner of the building's blown open, and so you could see that there's a second floor in there, and so there's more for a game like Mordheim or for Age of Sigmar or Warcry. There's that kind of stuff. So I got really excited. He had a free file out there on my mini factory for Hexengard, and I printed that, and I was like, this is pretty fucking good. Like, I won't be printing like models that I want to paint for gaming or for display out of that, but like there's so many other things you could do for it. And I will say my biggest takeaway from this, because we're so used to the almost like euphoric nature in which a resin printer prints, it's very like like it's slow, it's methodical, it goes up and down. This fucking FDM printer was like a fucking demon possessed.
It flies around, dude, right?
Not only is so the head is flying around on 2 axes, actually 3 axes, because it's going down. It's like, and it's loud, but it's not like incredibly loud, but it makes noise. But that thing's moving at the speed of light. And then the print bed also moves.
What the heck?
And yes, on the X and Y
Really?
axis. Yes. So they're both moving, and the whole fucking table is shaking that it's on. So I'm like, this print is going to be garbage. It was fucking perfect. I don't know, like it does all this testing when you set it up, that it counters for that shit. I'm like, I have to find a heavier duty table to put this on. So I don't know, but it was like, man, this thing is so aggressive.
That is awesome. So could you still see the layer lines?
Oh yeah, you can see them, but
that's kind of that's I don't. Maybe I'm being dumb. Maybe I just need to experience it for myself. But I feel like in a world where you could pick to not have them, or to have severely less like visible layer lines with a resin printer, would you not pick that?
I don't think it's feasible
That's too big
for bigger things.
Okay.
I mean, it's feasible, I guess, but it's gonna like the print bed on this thing is like
it's huge,
15 by 15 or bigger, and so I could in how big a print bed had. Even if you think the biggest print beds on resin printers, there's certain buildings, even just like one story of that building, you couldn't get on there.
Sure.
So there's that, and also, yes, they're hollowed-ish. It's still a fuckload of resin.
Right. Yes.
You think of like a good, like the resin that I buy that I really like, the frozen 8K stuff, is like $50 a bottle. Now you can get good stuff that's more in the $30 bottle range, I'm sure. I know that there's some, and you can get it in bulk, whatever. But I just think for a lot of, and the speed in which it does it, I cranked out a whole building that ended up being like 8 inches tall and 3 stories in like 6 hours. Like
maybe
it's
one of those things where if you get it all painted up and you put tufts on it, you put dirt on it, it doesn't really matter if you can see the layer lines because at like tabletop height, it's like pretty well masked.
I found some in my initial research. I did a bunch of looking on like how to deal with that because that's gonna bother the hell out of me. And I may go through the process of cleaning up and then painting one, and I'll be like, nah, right? I may say that, but I don't think so after looking at the quality of the print right now. But after a bunch of research, an actual product that I already use, it's called like a 3M edging sanding sponge. So it's the shape of a rectangle. It's about the size of like a kitchen sponge, but it's firm. And then both of the sides of it have like a sharp angle to them, so you can get in edges, and they come in different grits. And I already use those for like doing things on like plinths and stuff. They're a good sanding tool, but they're bigger. They fit in your whole hand. But like this dude using that, and it was like, oh, you could quickly sand down like 50% of it very quickly. And then it's using auto. The specific Rust-Oleum was he used, so I ordered it on Amazon. It was not expensive, but it was like auto filler plus primer in one.
Right.
And when you put that on, after you've gotten a decent percentage of the layer lines gone, it kind of fills. And because these are more about big details and not little details, in the grand scope of miniatures, right? They're much bigger details than so yeah.
Interesting. I wonder if anyone, when they make a model for FDM printing, exaggerate the depth of detail even more than like you would normally. So maybe it even looks a little weird in like its STL format when you're looking at it on a computer. But the moment you put filler primer on there, it like once it's filled up and whatever, it now looks normal again. I wonder if anyone tries to accommodate for that. Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But like I also think too that especially like when you're dealing with terrain, and you're dealing with terrain, you're often approaching it from a different painting perspective. And I think that one of those commonly is the big dry brush.
Yeah.
And I think that actually is a great detriment to what your final product looks like painted when you have even some smaller layer lines. All you're doing is accentuating the layer lines.
Right, yeah.
And so I think that my approach is going to be a lot more airbrush based.
Because it's going to meld those layers together. It's going to attack them all in the same kind of way, right?
Right. Yeah, you have to be a bit cognizant of the angle because you probably want to, as much as possible, be shooting straight at it and not from above or below.
Right.
Because then you create the shadows of the paint not hitting there. So, yeah, I got a whole approach.
Question for you. Have you ever painted terrain in a video, like as the main subject of a video on your channel?
One time very early.
Okay.
It did not do well.
No, it did. Oh, was it the basing one where you're like Crocodile Dundee and you're like...
No, not that one. I did one where I 3D printed and this whole terrain. It was like an undead terrain thing with some eerie lights that was going to be used for tying in with my, at that point, Death Army.
Okay.
So before they became what they are now, Soul Blight. So yeah, it was like a themed terrain piece, and I was going to have themed terrain for my army that I would put on the things that would feel like spoopy forests wherever I went, right? And that video didn't do well. And there are going to be a bunch of reasons why. I know that they can do well.
Yeah.
But also you have to take into account what your channel is and what people are there for too.
Yeah, which is the thing we discussed together with Jimmy. I was like, this video could work in a vacuum. It could work on a fresh new channel that has no videos because there are no expectations. There's no baggage along with it. Because that first 24-hour performance really does impact the trajectory of a video's like life, right? And if the people seeing it in the very beginning are all people that are expecting something else, then it may not get off to a great start.
Right.
Interesting to think about, you know?
Yeah. If it's going to go too far outside of the sphere of expectation, then it needs to have at least a decent potential for it, for lack of a more elegant term, for it to go viral, right?
Yes.
It needs to like skip off the water like a stone and just like shoot again out into somewhere in the unknown. And that's the whole goal. And it's good to have those kind of videos every now and again. And I sometimes remind myself, it's like, let's skip outside of that. But like,
do an outreach video.
But you also need to be well aware and be fine with the fact that it may fall on its face.
Yes. Yeah. That was one of the harder lessons that I learned when I like switched from weekly videos to I'm going to make a video whenever it's ready. And I was like, I'm going to be like those people that make awesome videos once every 2 months and they get 20 million views, but you know, the hobby version of that. So maybe like, I don't know, 500,000 views. And I did that and I fucking failed. And they got like 60,000 views, less than what I normally get. So it was like, wow, okay. And then I really stumbled over my feet for a very long time figuring out what the fuck I was doing wrong. But I think I know now. Last thing for me, I was really excited to paint some Legion models. I've never painted any Legion models. So I went to a new game store that I've only been to like once or twice. And I bought Callus, who's like an officer for the ISB, the Imperial Security Bureau. He's got big mutton chops and a cattle prod, you know.
What? Why did you have to go to a new store to buy him? Was it like you were ashamed of?
No. Yeah. I don't want Dan to know. No. I like checking out new game stores. I like seeing what they got going on. Sure. And so I was just there, and I saw the Legion wall, and I was like, let's do this. I'll buy one model. I don't need a whole unit. So I bought a character, got him home, assembled him. My hobby setup at home was a little scuffed. I don't have primer. And so I like went into the deep dark part of my basement and found like some aerosol spray can that was like royal blue, and I was like, this will work, like whatever. I just need to get paint on this like kind of slippery plastic so like the future layers will be easier to paint on. And so I take that fucking spray can and I go outside and I spray the model, and I know blue is like a rough color to cover up, like that's not my main concern, but I also did notice that one, it was glossy as fuck. Not even gaining anything. It's still slippery. And two, it was totally textured. It like got like a little bumpy and stuff. And I was like, shit. And so immediately I like looked at the can, saw it was glossy. I was like, okay, yeah, I fucked up. So I immediately went and put it in a little cup of isopropyl alcohol, went in a dog walk, came back. Usually if you get it like right away, like it comes off pretty fast. That fuck was on there, dude. Like it was not coming off. And I was like, shit. Left them there for 24 hours, still not coming off with a toothbrush. So I don't know what was in that can, but it was indestructible.
Wow.
But I went out to the source then, because I was still eager to paint a fucking model.
Buy him again.
I didn't buy the same guy. I bought Eden Versio, which is the model I have right here.
Okay.
And I got started painting her. So that was kind of like a goofy primer fail.
I have a recent primer fail too that I've been too embarrassed to tell anybody about.
Okay, you're just gonna drop that and then move on?
No, I'll share it here since you shared your primer fail. Okay. So, as I was doing the Kingdom Death video a week or two ago, I had primed I had 4 different ones that I was painting, but I was painting them like one at a time. So I painted, one in an afternoon. The next afternoon, I did the same thing, and I was like, my mind was elsewhere while I was priming, and I'm using my Mr. Surfacer 1500 Black, which is the lacquer primer, and completely oblivious until I am 3/4 the way through painting this model, I realized instead of using the Mr. Surfacer thinner in a bottle that you're supposed to thin that primer with, I just used the lacquer thinner, the big industrial lacquer thinner. That you use to clean out your airbrush with. I use that because I think also part of my mind is like mineral spirits for like oils and enamels thins and it cleans. And so it wasn't like I purposely decided to use the wrong thing. I think it was just like a habit of using that same metal bottle with the baby-proof cap and using my little syringe and putting it in. Almost done with the model. My favorite model of all of the ones that I had picked out to paint, and one of my favorite Kingdom Death models that exists. He's part of the 10-year anniversary models, and he's like a barbarian dude with a big beard. He's hunched over with 2 axes, no shirt, just a lot of awesome skin and gnarled face. And it came out like it was fucking asphalt. Like it's all textured. It's all fucked. It's like I look at the thing. I should have put it in something right away. And I was like, when you're in the middle of a project, you just want to keep moving. You
just gotta move on. Yeah.
Yeah. I just set it on the counter.
100%.
Found a different model. Found the dude with the shield in the spear, and I'm like, I'm doing him instead, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm like, so pro tip: if you use the lacquer primer, which I strongly encourage you to try if you have the right ventilation and masking and everything, make sure you use the Mr. Surfacer stuff that I talk about.
Leveling thinner.
Leveling thinner.
Yeah.
Do not just use lacquer thinner.
Do you use leveling thinner 500 or 1000 or 1500?
500, I think.
That's one I have as well. So did it fuck your airbrush?
No.
What?
It even came out fine. It would be almost like, the best way I could describe it, what it looked like and what it felt like, because it had a noticeable grit. It felt like the model was sculpted, had a thin layer of sandpaper on the model. Like it was really hard, really fine grit over everything.
Okay. I wonder if like ethanol or like some other stripping agent would just like take that right off, like not like a normal one, like isopropyl or something like that.
I know. I don't know.
Maybe someone knows in the comment section below.
Yeah. Is there a way to just get melt that lacquer that won't also melt the plastic model? Yeah. It's going to kill the model anyway. It's like,
right. It's resin, right? It was a plastic?
It's plastic.
Plastic, okay. Oh, speaking of plastic, I was really impressed with the Legion models. They remind me a little bit of GW minis from like the early 2000s or mid 90s. Like they have kind of big heads, like really big heads, like you'll see when you look at Eden. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, like the casts are super solid. Like they're great and they clean up well, just like GW minis do. Just like they kind of got a bit of like a vintage vibe to them with how they are proportioned.
Yeah. I think the water level is rising across the board on the ability to make solid plastic models on sprue.
Yeah, I think so.
That's a good thing. Last thing I wanted to talk about here is it's 2 things. Yeah, 2 things. Real quick, Golden Demon update. Okay, so this came across my feed from the Golden Demon Compendium on Instagram, but this is Games Workshop has released their rules for the Spiel Golden Demon in Germany. That's coming up. I'm sure it's coming up in like 4 weeks based on their timeline of when they get you actual rules for shit. It's not that long out, actually. And I'm going to read this 2 specific things that they mention here. First, in the rules, it now specifies entries must be hand painted, digitally painted / paint printed entries are not permitted. AKA, you can't print out a picture that looks cool on your LaserJet printer and glue it to a backdrop.
Whether you've made it yourself, whether AI generated it, whether you found it on Google Images, it's just not allowed.
Yes, not allowed.
Okay.
And tie into that, this is a separate line on a Q&A section. It says, the question is, am I allowed to use artificial intelligence to generate any part of my entry? Games Workshop answer is no. Now, I will give them this. I appreciate that they have made their decision and that they have put it out there and it's in their official rules and they're taking a stand on something. Whether or not you agree with it or not, I don't really care. I think this is the smart move. This is the move I would make.
Yeah,
I was running competition.
100%, yeah.
And sometimes things like a situation needs to happen in order for action of change, some significant change to take place. And so whether you agree or not, this all ties into Neil Hollis's piece from the Adepticon Golden Demon just this last March, where he did that.
Right? Single 40K winner?
Yep, single 40K gold winner, where he did that. He it generated an AI image that looked like a rainforest, slightly blurry, and so it was meant to feel like it in the background. He printed it out, he slapped it on a backdrop, and then that was his piece. And he won gold with that. Well, he won gold because the model was amazingly painted.
Yeah.
But it was a part of that piece. So that brought the thought to the forefront. So I appreciate that changes happen and that they're making things clear. Sometimes it has to be pushed into your face in order for you to act. And so in that regard, I give props to Neil, because Neil put this in front of their faces, and whether or not if it lines up at all with what his purpose was, their intentions were, or what he feels about AI art, is beside the point. The fact of the matter this would not have happened. They would not have made this clear. In my opinion, they would not have done this if there wasn't the drama surrounding that.
Absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely not. So it's always so interesting to think about the distinctions between like what's allowed and what's not allowed. So it's like, you can't print something on the backdrop. Could I print a tiny wanted poster and put it on?
Yeah, those are often not. Yeah.
Could I print a custom decal and use that? That's printed on a printer.
That's tough.
Obviously the decal probably, totally fine. But like, I have like a little wanted poster on like one of my display models. It's like, is that allowed? It gets murky so fast. But
I think they'd want you to freehand that.
Probably. I mean, I think it'd be more impressive if you did that though.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right.
But I agree with you. I think it's great that they are explicit with the ruling and so quickly afterwards as well.
Yeah, explicit as you can be.
Right.
Because there's so many gray areas that have to be considered case by case. And from my experience, especially in dealing with the Golden Demon judges and the people that take in your pieces, the thing where you see it most often is which category. And from my experience, they kind of allow you, if it's could be this category, let you choose. Judges will put you in a different category if they strongly feel that it should be in a different category. But they do kind of take things case by case, right? And I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every one of these is a unique piece of art that is a million variables has been into it to have it look the way it looks in its final form. So we should treat them as one by one. So, but it's good to have overarching. And the last thing I want to talk about real quick is that I hung out with Vincey V this week. And you recently did an in-person hangout with him. And
I
did.
Shared
this in a video.
Well, you were here for that as well.
Yeah, when he was here.
Yeah.
I wasn't there for the painting duel, as it were, gentleman's duel. And so we did a virtual hangout. We used to do a lot of those, especially when I was really grinding away on my Golden Demon piece. Mm-hmm. And we hadn't done one in a while. And I was like, Vince, I miss you. When you do this, he's like, yeah. The greatest thing about Vince is like he's a man of action. If there's something that you're passionate about or something that you want to do or something you have an idea on or whatever, he'll be like, great, let's do it. Or he'll be like, okay, what's the next steps? Mm-hmm. So the thing will happen instead of just talking. A lot of people fucking talk, right?
Yeah.
Vince doesn't talk.
Like, we'll plan this. I'll reach out to you when I find time.
Yeah, we'll look at it and, okay, let's circle back on that. No, it's like, all right, do it. And so from when I brought that up, like 26 hours later, we were on a paint jam call for 2 hours. So
nice.
I really appreciated that. I also turned my cameras on and recorded because we were both painting Skaven and got to talk shit to each other.
There you go.
About this. We need this to ramp up a level or two.
Yeah.
We need to get this to come to head because my plan is that this is all going to come to a giant volcano explosion at VinceyCon where we pit our painted forces against each other.
I thought you were going to say wrestle bare-chested, oiled up.
Yeah, baby oil.
Okay. So
yes. Yeah, we need to get one of those little kiddie pools that we can wrestle in this basement.
I'd pay for that.
Okay.
I'd pay for the kiddie pool for all the oil.
Okay.
So just let me know.
Sure, we could crowdfund this.
No. My money.
Yeah, you're the sole investor.
Yeah. I want to be the lone producer.
You can make all the shots. All right, no, you go stand over there.
I'll sell pay-per-view. We'll put it on fucking, I don't know, where do they go on? HBO? I have no clue.
Yeah, I'm sure HBO Max would pick that up. For
sure.
Yeah.
ESPN 75, like whichever one they want that on.
Right.
All right.
Well, man, we say we want keep Preamble Ramble short, but that's okay. It's gonna work.
No one
well.
says that. Literally, no one says that. You don't say that. The viewers don't say that.
I don't. Yeah, I don't say that.
Yeah.
We like as a part of like point of focus. We're like, all right, we keep these things a little tighter.
Tighter.
Let's tighten up a little bit. Let's get professional. And then we sit down, turn the camera on, and
So everything goes to fucking shit.
Down the fucking hill. Well, what'd you paint, Scott?
Yeah, I painted some stuff.
You painted a big ass head Star Wars figure.
Yeah, you look at Eden Versio. Yeah, I fucking love painting faces, man.
It doesn't help that you only have her face painted, so her head looks extra big.
Yeah. She's like a chibi, but she's not
like
a
an
chibi.
orange on a toothpick.
Yeah, so I painted her head. I got a bunch of TT Combat paint at home, which works good enough for me. And a plastic plate and some paper towel, and that's my white pellet, and it works great. And I don't know, it's a nice face, a lot of sculpted. I can see the eyes, I can see the eyelids, I could see everything on a 32 mil scale model, admittedly with a larger head than looks realistic, but it was still enjoyable.
I think when it's all painted, it won't look off. I mean, it certainly is slightly big, but I kind of. It's also tough when it's a figure that doesn't have a lot of bulk on, like, in their wardrobe.
Sure, yeah.
It makes it look like if she had shoulder pads on that were slightly bigger.
Oh yeah, you know what,
like,
that would have give you kind of a taper too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what goes into a Star Wars Legion list, and I have no plans on necessarily painting a whole army. I might just do what I did for my Greyjoy for a while and just like paint a single dude every now and then. Just to kind of like have fun painting, and then at some point when I like get close, I'll fucking strike.
You're within striking distance.
Yeah, exactly. Just go for it. So I don't know, but I did do some army list reading. I reached out to Jay from Eons of Battle because he has played the game and does know some stuff, and he threw a bunch of links at me, and they were all very confusing. So I think I just read the rules and figure it out. But yeah, having fun painting some Legion models.
That's a good looking face, dude. That looks like this is a really odd thing to say.
I'm concerned.
But I'm going to say it anyway.
I'm going to say it anyway.
It looks like you had fun painting this.
I don't know why.
Thank you.
No, I did. I painted it at home, which I think is the best way to indicate that I'm having fun just painting.
You can tell you enjoyed that part of the process.
Definitely, yeah. The face, I think Lucas also, Harry Potter of Squidmar, also just loves to paint faces. I saw a recent post on his Instagram where he's like, I could just paint faces, and that's it. And I kind of feel that way as well. I think I could just paint faces all day long, and I'd be happy.
I think it's a really good thing to like to paint.
yeah, true.
Because you get a good-looking face, a lot of other stuff you can throw out the window.
Yeah, yeah. I will say I learned a long time ago in my face painting class with Ben Comets at Adepticon, that he was like, generally I like to place a highlight emphasis on one side of the head because like a straight on highlight, a little bit uninteresting. Also a little bit easier to paint from one direction, I think.
It is.
I picked the wrong side of the head. I should have picked the side that's fucking facing like the torso and not the part that's like behind her fist. So that was a fool.
You only got one half of the Wu-Tang Clan in your decision making process. You got the one side which has been comments, which was correct. But the other side, the RZA that you didn't get.
The RZA?
Yeah. A member of the Wu-Tang Clan.
Okay.
That you didn't bring into the fold was Eric Swinson, where always paint to the golden angle.
Yeah, okay. I forgot my lessons.
So if you would have brought in both of those, you would have gotten it right on.
Fucking synergy.
It still looks good. It still looks good because you did it off center.
Sure, yeah. Yep, that's my first thing.
Okay, and then there's a fucking... Is that World of Warcraft?
It is. Do you want me to do all my things?
Yeah. Now I'm excited. So I want to know about this World of Warcraft super matte paint, scale 75 on steroids here.
I know, yeah. I want to kind of maybe take a little bit longer to explain this because it was kind of a cool experience.
Okay. I'm here for it.
All right, yeah. So fucking Blizzard reached out to me to paint a model for a video. And, they could have had just about any idea for a video. I'd have been like, yes. Blizzard is a company that was with me for so long in my video gaming career when I was younger. Some of the first real video games I ever played were Blizzard games. And I played WoW forever, and I loved WoW. And so it was such a cool opportunity to get to just make a video with them. But then the creative brief was to make a model and then paint it and make a video about it. And they were supposed to supply me with models. And it took a long time. They gave me like these weird FBX files, which I discovered were like some kind of CAD file. And I don't know how to open them. And the file sizes were really small. And so I felt like they weren't right. And like each model was in like many files, like maybe like 5 or 6 or up to 10 for certain ones. And like, this doesn't feel like normal.
Yeah, you got some emergency lights that are going off on your dash right now.
Yeah, and so I was like, okay, I can't use these. I couldn't figure out a way to open them or convert them into a usable file format. And even if I could, I don't think it would have worked. And so they spent a long time trying to find STLs, and eventually they did. Probably like 2 weeks before the deadline, maybe like 12 days before the deadline was supposed to do for the video. And they were bad models. They were really bad models. They were all standing like a skeleton that you would import into like
ZBrush or something.
A 3D editor to rig a animated character for like movement in a video game. So, right? They're all standing super statically and also so like inhuman. All their eyes are closed, and they're all super polygonal. Like you can see all the hard edges. So like literally any one of those 3 is a deal breaker. But to have all 3 on every single model they sent me, like all 6 of them, I was like,
I don't think whoever was in charge of this didn't know what they were doing. I didn't know what the expectation or what this hobby is.
Yeah, and that was actually reinforced further with more conversation in the email. So Trigv, our joint sponsorship guy, was like, he's like, well, if it comes down to it, maybe we can just paint one of those models. I was like, everyone will fucking comment nonstop about how ridiculous these look. And so Blizzard had a thing in their creator brief, which big companies send along, like a slideshow on Google Slides about all the things you can do. And one of the slides is about making a proposal for a video. Like if you have an idea for a video, follow these steps, propose it to us, and we'll review it and then approve it. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to save this video from the brink of destruction here. I want to have one of my sculptors make a model based on this concept art, and I'll paint it in a video. And their initial concern was like, that there has to be 5 minutes in length, and we're concerned that that isn't going to be longer than 5 minutes. And I was like, bitch, this is my channel. Like, here are these 6 videos where I'm painting busts, and they are all 20 minutes long. You know, it's like,
that's not a worry.
It's not like, even if it was a 32 mil model. So yeah, they just didn't know. That's totally fine. And so I showed them that in my proposal, and instantly they were like, yes, let's do it. And so there's like 12 days to sculpt the fucking model, get it approved, paint it, get it approved, make the video, get it approved in 12 fucking days. Sculpt the model.
Jesus.
And so when I got the Mini to make the video, I had 3 days to paint and make the video.
No.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. And so, okay, if this wasn't Blizzard, okay, also I will say this, like they paid me a lot of money, more than normal. Bigger companies often have a larger checkbook for marketing expenses, and so they pay more. And so that definitely contributed to this. Number one, like the opportunity and fucking honor to get to essentially produce a model for Blizzard, fucking awesome. And also it was a huge payday. And so I wanted to make sure I could get this done. And so sometimes you just do the goddamn job, right?
Yeah.
And so I worked for fucking 27 hours straight, slept for 3 hours, woke up, worked there 12 hours so I could finish this video on time. And I got it submitted at 11:58 p.m. the day it was supposed to be done. I had to finish that and an Instagram short. I had to do both of those things. By like August 21st, which was like Wednesday.
Oh my gosh.
And I did it. It was hard, but I did it. I took Thursday off because I like worked a whole work week in the first 3 days of the week, or even longer than that. And I got it done. And I want to backtrack a little bit. I mentioned the thing about cost. There's no ad read in this video. I love big companies because they don't really ever want ad reads. They want you just to make a video and be excited about making the video. And like through the excitement, the advertisement comes naturally. And so while it was a big payday, there was no ad read. I wasn't like lying about anything in World of Warcraft, or I wasn't influenced. The only thing that I was influenced by was really wanted to make this work and make the video done on time. because I didn't want to disappoint anyone. And there was like a very clear schedule that I had to follow, and I'm like not great at following schedules. And so I got it in. And they had one feedback. They're like, we love the video. We love the model. It's all great. Can you remove this one story where you talk about how you paid some Chinese farmer to level up your account for you? And I was like, fuck. Okay, fine. And so that
yeah, I can see why they would.
It was so funny, though. It was a funny story, but they didn't want it in. So if you're a patron and you saw the first revision of the video, you would have heard that story. But for everyone on YouTube, you'll miss out on that story. That was the one piece of feedback they had. And I fixed it. But it's a really unique experience. I didn't talk at all about painting the model. I mean, what is there to say? It's not really ever fun to have to rush to paint a display model.
Yeah.
You know, I've done this a couple of times where you have to like work a fuckload of hours in a very short amount of time. I'm kind of tired of doing it. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of sick of that. I'm trying to do that less in my career. But even so, I really am happy with how it turned out.
Yeah.
I love the purple and the gold trim. I love those stupid balls. Like she has like these spheres that are floating around her. Like I don't know what they are, but I added some by just super gluing on craft wooden balls to her tippy shoulder things. They look like they're kind of just floating there.
Yeah.
I love the hair. I think I like the hair a lot with like that cool highlight around the edges.
Mm-hmm.
I love the eyeballs that are like just dark and like a ring for an iris. I don't know. The scheme came together. I didn't make up the scheme. It was based on the concept art and also the character in the video game. But I think it worked out really well for the time that I had to make it.
I mean, it's a well-restrained sculpt, too.
Yes. That was an important thing, too.
Did you work with the sculptor that you're working with already?
Yeah. Layla did this for me, and she was like down. She's like, okay, I'll do it as fast as possible. And she cranked it out, 12 days to do all of that work. It was insane. It takes me like a month to sculpt a model like normally when I have like the ability to give many rounds of feedback. But yeah, so that was part of it too. I made a bust because I knew if it was a full fig at like 75 mil scale, that would take way too long. So the bust was that was on purpose to make it go faster.
Now, what happens to this? Like, because people will probably want this file.
It's true. I actually I have no idea. I need to ask Blizzard if they'll let me just give it away for free.
Yeah, because probably from a licensing perspective, they're not going to agree to let you just sell it.
Oh God, no, absolutely not. I can't sell it. Not only do I not own the character, I also don't own the concept either. I found one that I really liked, and I credited the artist in the video and stuff, but I didn't buy it or anything. So yeah, this is definitely not a sellable thing.
Yeah, because I think it's a really cool model. In
Yeah.
terms of like really interesting female busts, like there's a ton of them out there for sale, even from really nice quality companies and sculptors that like this stands toe to toe with.
Seriously? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely a testament to Layla's skill for sure.
Yeah, like just the angle of the face, and you got that really nefarious look.
Oh yeah,
down
she looks
really
super
well.
evil, yeah.
It's not over detailed. Like it really feels like a World of Warcraft armor style too, where it's it's very dynamic while not being over detailed.
Yeah, I didn't actually think about that. You're definitely right about that. Another funny primer fail. I primed one of these balls in this black Krylon Fusion primer that I bought forever ago. And this was like 1 a.m, and I was like, I need to hurry this the fuck up. And so I immediately hit it with a hairdryer on high speed, and the primer instantly started to bubble.
Oh no!
Like it was like an alive organism all over it, and those bubbles then hardened. They were so it was like this really bumpy surface, and I sanded it down and then primed it again with the same stuff, and I just didn't hit it with a hairdryer until like 10 minutes later, and then it was fine.
Huh?
Kind of weird.
Man, chemistry's weird.
I know what's going on there. But yeah, that is Xalatath. That's her name.
Xalatath.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of painting too.
Yeah, dude. Fucking lot. I also haven't painted a display model in a long time. So it does feel good to get back on it and to paint a model super fast and to feel good about it. But I want to paint a display model with like actual reasonable amount of time, and put some effort into it.
Yeah. It's funny too when you go back to those, because every time I do that, it's the same thing. I'm like, I forgot how much I enjoy this. But also like, it's like riding a bike, but like kind of like you never really rode a bike a whole lot in the past. So it takes a little bit of like, oh yeah, okay, I remember. Okay, it's a little bit awkward, but you kind of, it's a different animal.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is. Like the huge surfaces are like not fun to paint. Like even just her long and thin forearm. It's like getting a blend around that surface that's that long, like an inch long, not an inch long, 3/4 of an inch long. It just is. It's not as easy as you think it is, unless you're using an airbrush, I suppose. But yeah, a lot of different skills get used when the model just increases in size by like 10 times.
Yeah, you can work with a lot more nuance.
Absolutely.
Too. Like you couldn't, the way that black is subtly painted, you couldn't get away with that on a 32 mil model.
Probably not.
It would just kind of look like it was black and the light's hitting it from above, but you can see it more cleanly defined there without having to go over the top. You don't have to over accentuate things as much.
Yeah. I do like the matte, like charcoal black though. I think it works super well next to the super glossy golden trim. It's like a nice amount of contrast.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I really like that.
Thank you.
Okay,
some rats?
So what I painted. Yeah, more rats. So just kind of in a little bit of spare time, free time, I painted up 2 more clan rats, which are those 2 little guys.
Is that the paint on your hand right there? Is that clan rat paint?
No, that's the big guy paint.
Oh, big guy paint. Okay.
I was painting until like 10:30 last night.
Just for a video, for fun, or
yeah, for a video. Well, not the clan rats, but the big guys for a video.
Okay, gotcha.
This chat time with Vincey video. But interesting thing we'll talk about in the after party, which is our extended version of the podcast that is all of our patrons get. It's a nice little thank you. That interesting thing about those clan rats, those are painted with an entirely different paint range from the rest of the army. And if I put those next to 10 of the ones from the other ones, I can't tell the difference.
Yep.
And I don't think anyone else would. So I'm gonna get into that a little bit more detail in the after party. But in the last 2 days, I painted rat on rat. I don't know what his official name is, so I just call him rat on rat.
ROR.
Yeah. And the whole premise with this was I just wanted the big mutant like rat horse that he's riding to feel like it was infected by the warp stone that's like jammed into him, because the thing already looks like somewhat zombie-ish, like a ghoulish monster.
Yeah.
So I wanted that to like feel like that's the source of the sickness, both the power that it's drawing from and the way it's like corrupting and like decaying that rat thing. So he says a slight sickly green, and it's all over a blue. If you look at it from below, it's like this interesting kind of grayish teal is the shadow color. And so I built up from blue and then added more undead colors and brought in some maroons and some reds to
there's like
some life.
There's a magenta shadow in like the claw. And
there's some glazes. Yeah, I wanted to push the warmth kind of towards the fingers, and he's got like these almost like flappy fold things.
Yeah.
That I wanted to push. So those are glazes of pushing down more of that warmth in those areas.
Oh, okay, so even on the knuckles, that's not like a base coat.
No, it isn't.
Wow. Okay,
all
it's really
glazed
strong. It's really strong.
Yeah, I spent 2 days. That's 2 days of work. What's there? And I didn't even get the fucking base finished, but whatever. That shouldn't take very long. I spent a majority of the time that I spent on this model was the skin of that rat, because I thought it's the most like interesting thing.
So you do something in my head mildly controversial, and I want to, but also potentially very time saving, and I want to talk to you about if you thought about it. I'm sure you did. You painted all the fur to be the same color as the skin, as opposed to differentiating them as a different color fur, like gray or black or brown or something like that.
Because people that paint it differently are wrong. Because if you look at specifically these Skaven models, I've looked at very closely and have painted a number of them. All of their body is that fur.
Okay, sure.
It's just not sculpted everywhere.
Okay.
They're
That makes sense. It's like it's so scaled down, there's no texture to it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so to me, there's not like a sleeve, a cuff, or anything on any of the models, even the little guys, where it's like, oh, this is where the fur ends and then the bare paw begins. So I don't paint them like that. because it's the right way to do it. That's my thought.
So the pink of his face, like the
Yeah, I pull up more lightness and brightness and pink in their faces.
That is true.
To just like draw your eye there, and for it to, I mean, naturally that, animals typically have that, and rats are no different. So I like to do that on all of them as well. So it almost feels like it's more gradual, that it's actually changing, that it's what material it is. But because the problem is, if you make them different, where do you start it and where do you stop it?
I think it's got to be a thing where you kind of just you just slightly glaze it in. I don't think it needs to be that complicated. I think maybe it's like a contrast paint, and then you kind of blur the edge where it leads into the skin. If you were to do that,
yeah, you can go darker. That's the other thing.
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
is where those sculpted fur are. You could then pull it darker. Blend it into, then pull up darker.
I get what you're saying. 100%.
But yeah, and I'm not saying that there are certain models that I won't lean that way for, but I didn't necessarily hear. Also, it was taking a long time. I'm like, what am I going to do? Add 6 more steps to this?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, it was fun. It was. I was like, he's the leader, and he's also he sucks balls in the game, so that's great news.
Oh no.
Yeah, but he's part of the Spearhead, so I needed to get him all done.
Oh right. Okay. Is there a thing you're doing for Spearhead explicitly?
That is my project, is actually to complete this Spearhead, which I'm now.
Is that the video idea?
Well, the video's been going on for quite a while, but everything that I've painted.
Oh, this is part of the series. Okay.
Part of the series is that I'm the culmination is there's a Spearhead tournament in my local area, September 12th. So that's not that far away, and my goal is to have the whole Spearhead painted by September 12th. But that's kind of, if I don't get that done, that's not the end of the world. But I want it 100% painted for VinciCon, and then officially threw down the gauntlet that we're not just painting the armies. He needs to have a Skaven Spearhead painted as well, and so that we're gonna play painted Spearhead versus painted Spearhead.
Skaven on Skaven action.
Yeah. Yep. I think the Skaven will win.
I wonder what I need to paint to get my AOS Spearhead done.
Do you have skeletons painted?
I have 20 skeletons painted. I have no zombies though.
I don't think there's any zombies in it. I think it's
Blood Knights are in it, right?
Blood Knights, skeletons, and I think Vampire Lord on foot.
That's it?
Yes.
Okay.
I
thought there was one thing I didn't have. But I have all those things you just mentioned, so should be okay.
Yeah, then you should bring one, and then we can try it out.
Freaking throw down. Cool. I painted one last thing. We don't talk about it very long. It's just the head of that Orlok ganger.
Oh yeah, I saw the pictures of that. I think it was on your Patreon post.
It was, yeah. It was pretty easy. Again, more space painting. I love
Jimmy painted his space as well.
You did. You did
Space
as well.
face.
He did as well. It was funny when I turned the cameras off. The stress levels immediately fell down, or the adrenaline levels fell down. He was like, "Man, I'm exhausted right now."
Yeah,
yeah, because trying to be on the camera, and he was, understandably struggling just to keep the face in frame and in focus. One of the hardest things to paint on camera, honestly. I didn't think about that beforehand. But yeah,
let him see the hard stuff.
Yeah, it's difficult to be interesting and say interesting things, and he was concerned he wasn't painting well enough, and that wasn't really the point. But yeah, a lot of things to think about when you're on camera painting, especially in a live format like that. All right, are we getting into the main topics?
Yeah, we're gonna rumble through a couple of shorter ones today. That was the thought, anyway.
Yeah. Not one big topic, but several smaller questions from you guys. As a patron, not only do we give you feedback on your miniatures and you get access to the extended portion of the podcast, but you can also supply some topics for us to discuss. And sometimes the questions aren't things we feel like we can speak to for a whole episode, so we like to break them up into smaller questions, 3 or 2 in 1. So we'll get it started here with Mike, otherwise known as Snicologist. He asks, what defines a well-sculpted model for you guys? So a well-said question for you guys. Obviously, this is subjective. We can't quantify what makes a good model and a bad model. We can only say what we like about models that we like.
We can say what's good, what's bad.
We are the scholars! No.
Yes, members of the high council.
The highest of council. Yeah, I'll get kicked off here. I think we've definitely mentioned this before in the past, but the model needs a great balance of details. You can put too many details on a model that are a chore to paint, and you can put just the right amount on a model where they're fun little side quests for you while you're painting, but they don't take away from the main detractor. I feel like when you buy a model, you kind of buy it for like that awesome golden angle you see on that box. There's like a lot of really cool things you're excited to paint. The head, the cool helmet, the really cool big weapon, maybe like the type of armor he or she is wearing. But then you kind of get into these things where like you have like the holster, the pouches, the nurgling on their shoulder, like the 17 skulls on the base. And it's like that stuff can really drag a model down in terms of the painting process, which I think sculptors need to be, concerned with. I think the model needs to be enjoyable to paint as well, because that's your target audience, your customer base. And so that's the first thing I'll mention is a great balance of amount of details.
Yeah. It's not a case of more is better.
No, definitely not.
And the more experienced and talented, better a sculptor is, the more that they can pull and push that bar to find the right balance.
Mm-hmm.
To me, regardless of if it's 32 millimeter up to display quality or 72 millimeter to a bust, whatever, a major factor of what determines if a model is what I consider good or not is what I would call a powerful pose. And I often use the word dynamic, but I don't think that's the right word to use, because dynamic often implies there's a lot of action. There's a lot of, I think of like any strip of from a panel from a comic book from Spider-Man is dynamic, because he's always like fucking dangly or shooting or like whipping through the air or hopping off of something like an acrobat. Those are dynamic poses, and those work, and those are great. But you can have a lot of power in a pose that doesn't have a lot of action. And like this bust that you have here is a great example of that. There's a lot of power in that pose. The angle of her head, the way the shoulders are slightly back, her hands nefariously just touching the fingertips in front of her. Like, it's really understanding anatomy and making it feel like a realistic situation where the model has weight, and that's how the body moves based on the weight of the model and what's happening and why is that model in the pose that it's at, and is that the most like dramatic version of that pose that really catches your eye and really feels badass. Like, would this pose work on the cover of an 80s action movie, right? If it doesn't, and it's supposed to be a dude with a big gun in battle, how do you change that? Right? That is what makes a model really exciting and interesting for me. And if it has that, I get surprised at what a wide variety of models excite me and interest me to paint, even if their subject matter, faction, exactly what's going on there isn't necessarily my cup of tea. If it's a really powerful, interesting pose, I'll often be like, oh, I kind of want to paint that.
Yeah.
And so that's my key number one thing. And it's a little bit like ethereal, because it's like, I'm not telling you, I want a fantasy, want a fantasy elf.
What else? Give me the bow.
And he's got to have a bow, but he's also got to have swords on his hip.
Ponytail too.
He's got to be sliding down a railing on a shield.
Oh God, is his name got to be Legolas too?
No. His name can be Leganeth.
Oh my gosh, you're totally right. Like, another example of a pose that's not dynamic but very powerful is that classic Conan sitting in his throne.
Oh,
with his wrists on his sword, and a babe to his left or right. Like, either one, like, super powerful pose. And you're totally right. Pose is like almost everything. Everything else is kind of like secondary and kind of a supporting thing to a really cool posed model. Like,
if you don't have that, it can be a great model, and it's
kind of generic.
Yeah, it just feels like, why does he just feel like it feels like a Woody action figure, right?
Yeah, you're a Guy Morley, where it's just like kind of like I'm in 2D plane, or something like that. Yeah, actually, when I was designing the Wood Elves, I bought a collection of photographed actors. It was like 2,000 images, in different poses, holding swords, swinging on ropes, fighting. And they're made. That collection of pictures was made for people who draw the human form. They want to see.
Okay.
But it was amazing as inspiration to like see the different ideas and what you can do that looks cool and also what doesn't look very cool. So yeah, pose is definitely big, and that's why I picked the concept art for this chick, because she looked just so evil. Like right away, I didn't need to do any thinking at all.
Yeah, and all that work, that really thoughtful decision making was done for you in that concept art. But that was done.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't just like, oh, I found a cool picture of her on the internet. It's like, oh no, when that artist came up with that original work, all that work on pose was done for you. And that's why sometimes, and like we see it in the artist series for Mindwork Studios around Brahm, that the pieces that I think are the most powerful in those for those models are the ones that have strong pose from the original Brahm artwork. And it really just translates well. Like you don't have, as a sculptor, you still have to execute, but the hard work on the pose.
Yeah, that roadmap is done. That's also why we were able to go so fast, because I just grabbed a finished great concept. We don't have to fucking go through that process.
Yeah, you had a great sculptor too that could make it happen.
Absolutely, yeah. Everything came together super well. All right, next thing what makes a great model for me is just clearly defined volumes. I could paint a pewter model from North Star Figures, tiny little brand, or GW, as long as I can see the things that matter to me. The eyes, the fingertips, where one detail ends and another begins. One gripe I have about hand sculpted models is sometimes when you get to like these areas that don't matter so much, like the rib cages or like other parts of the model, it turns into like this fuzzy nothingness. And it's like, what is that? Is that fur? Is that part of the cloak? Or like, I hate it when like there's like a piece of fabric that's like showing under another piece of fabric, and when you follow it around at the back of the model, it like morphs into one cape, and it's like, how the fuck am I supposed to paint this? So I think thoughtfully designed models that have like a great amount of details, but also details that are like visible with whatever casting methodology you want to use, whether it's shitty board game plastic from CMON, whether it's hard plastic from like Legion or GW, whether it's resin, whether it's hand sculpted or digitally sculpted. I want to be able to know what all those things are when I'm painting them, but also I don't want them to vanish after one layer of primer and one layer of paint. So it's got to be sufficiently deep detail and also just like readable at scale. Those are huge hangups for me very often that are really annoying when I'm painting.
Yeah. Another thing, because I sit and think about this, and there's not a lot. I feel like, at least for me, our list is fairly short about what makes a good model.
Yeah, it's not about like subject matter or anything like that. Yeah.
But it's each of those couple of things, needs to win. Like, it needs to be done really well.
Yes.
I do think that one thing that I really like and I think is valuable and makes me more likely to want to paint something is that it go full ball sack. And what I mean by that is if you're creating a thing, it is the kind of over the top version of the thing. And I don't mean silly. I don't mean like just crazy or whatever, and it could even be a simple model or simple concept. But if it's a barbarian, I want a fucking like crazy looking barbarian. Obviously he's running, his mouth is open, and he's wielding two amazing looking axes, and he just screams barbarian, and that doesn't mean that it has to be the highest detail. Again, going back to pose, going back to the amount of details on the model, that all needs to be taken into account. But it needs to be what I consider a very cranked up to 11 version of that thing. And it could be vampire is just like, as if it's very subtle and it's very like, oh, they're kind of shied away and they're in a cloak or whatever. And if I look at that at the table, I wouldn't know that's a vampire. That could just be a dude in a bathrobe, right? Like it needs to be, because we're dealing with small things, I want it to be an over accentuated version of that thing. I want to see the fangs. I want the mouth open. I want the looking up towards the sky with the hair flapping in the wind and his claws up and fucking bats swirling out of his cape and all this shit. Like, I want it to be over the top because especially at 32 millimeter scale. Like it needs to really be an accentuated version of whatever that thing is, which is why I think when we think of things like grots and squigs, things that are like even their anatomy is over accentuated, the way that they're in crazy situations, they're jumping funny, and the squigs' mouths are huge and the tongues are lolling out and their eyeballs are all like a pug sticking out of their heads. Like, it's over the top. And that really helps. One, it's fun to paint because it ties back to the other things that we talk about. Yeah. It's fun to paint, but also it's an accentuated version that really makes the model look cool on the table.
It's just like painting, right? Like you need to use more contrast than is normal in reality to make the thing pop out more. It's the exact same with the sculpting, which is why heroic scale exists in the first place, for bigger heads and bigger hands. Mm-hmm. I think being able to accentuate those details in the sculpt is super important, but I feel like GW has really kind of like naturally come to this spot where like they just understand how much to accentuate each part of the model. Like the heads are bigger. They don't feel bigger, though. The hands are bigger. They don't feel bigger. Like, if you go and look at old Cadian models, those guys' hands feel fucking huge.
They're as big as their heads.
Exactly. They're fucking big. But they've dialed it back to this like kind of perfect level where I look at a GW model, and if I really think about it, yeah, I can tell the proportions aren't perfect, but it doesn't feel bad initially, and it makes it so much more easier and enjoyable to paint, which is like just totally money. I think those are like the most important things for me when it comes to sculpting a model. We could probably get more into the weeds with stuff, but did you want to move on to the next question?
I think we keep moving. I think we hit the things that matter most to us in life. All right, so I'll read this one. This one's by Anthony Rossi. Mr. Rossi. Mi scusi. All right, so I'm just going to read what he wrote here, and then we'll take it from there, okay?
Yeah.
It says, you could break down whether or not there should be a difference between single unit for D&D or a 2,000 plus point GW army. Should we strive for perfection in every model we paint? Is there a standard you accept for something you're going to use and get your meaty mitts all over? Should we just be worried about getting something on our minis so we don't show up to a game with gray units? I feel like there's a lot of great talking points for this, especially coming from you two guys who paint decorative miniatures also.
I tried to distract you while you were reading. I sent you a penis. Not a picture, but it's the word. You fucking didn't miss a beat. You just swiped it away and kept going.
You overestimate my ability to read. I was struggling just to get through the reading part. I didn't have time to get one eye looking at no penis.
You could do no chameleon eyes?
When I saw that thing come up, I saw a little fucking schoolgirl smirk on your face. I figured it was you. I didn't even look. I didn't want to look.
Professional over here.
You're right. Okay, so Scott, summarize.
Yeah, so this question actually asks a really interesting question that I think I asked Vince while he was here in that video that didn't make it into the edit, where it's like this whole idea of how does painting an army compare to painting a single display figure? Because for a lot of army guys out there, they may not understand that you can spend an identical amount of time painting an entire army as to painting a single model, which is kind of crazy, right? You can spend 100 hours painting a beautiful display model with an amazing base, and I could paint an army in 100 hours for fucking sure.
Yeah.
And so are there similarities? Are there differences? There absolutely are. He also asked a lot of other great questions that we can also try to answer, like what's the standard tabletop standard? Like how do you figure that out? Should you go for perfection? A lot of great questions, but I kind of want to start in that area and like talk about the similarities between the two. So firstly, I think that there's a lot to learn in just finishing the process, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of people will start a thing and not finish it, especially for army painting. Like I definitely do that a lot. But when you get to the end of a project and you look back at what you did and what you invested time with and what panned out, what didn't pan out, you fucking learn what to do for the next one, right? If you just paint one unit in an army and then never finish because maybe you're trying too hard, and then buy another army and paint one unit too well and don't finish because you're trying too hard, you never learn about what's worth it when you get to the end. And it's the exact same thing for painting a display model, right? You spend a ton of time on the NMM armor, but you never get to the end of the process. You don't understand the skills necessary to cut corners so that you can finish, so you still have energy left to finish a thing, right?
Yeah.
Stamina is, which sounds stupid when you're painting. It's not a physical activity, but the ability to finish something and understand like what you're capable of is so important. I think the same is true for both things.
Yeah, there's a level where you're going to fall off, whether it's gradual or it's a steep decline off a cliff in your energy, your excitement, your patience in any project. In the Army and the single competition piece or display piece, they're no different in that you have to be setting yourself up to be able to deal with that. One way that I think is valuable to deal with those is get paint on everything, work up everything, work up or work on the thing that's got you interested in that time, so you don't have this big gap, which will lead to a more fall off of your interest in the project. And the more you've worked at least a little bit, it's like, I'm just going to kind of do the basic base coats and the scratchy highlights for this leather cloak. I know it's going to need a lot of work for me to get this to where I'm happy with it for a competition piece. But when I do get to that, maybe that's one of the last things I want to paint on this piece. I'm not doing it from scratch. And so the weight of it is not so heavy. It doesn't feel so daunting. I can put the same 10 hours into this as I would have no matter when I did it in the project. But because I've already done 1.5 of those hours, when I'm lower energy, lower kind of persistence towards the ends of a project, which is going to happen, then I don't have as high of a hill to climb. Another thing with that is to start with the things, maybe not, especially for like an Army, and even with a display figure, don't start with the most difficult, most time-consuming thing first. Get a little momentum. Do a unit of 5 things or maybe even one hero that excites you, or do the interesting sword blade first. And then the second thing you do should be the most difficult, most time-consuming thing. Maybe that's the big Nagash or whomever, your big model.
You're talking about for Army painting?
For Army painting, I want you to paint your most difficult unit or model second.
Okay.
For display painting, I want you to paint the most difficult part, the most time-consuming part. Maybe it's both. Probably will be. Second. You don't do them first because you need to get your feet wet in the project first. You need to get a feel for this model for display. You need to get a feel for this Army and the Army composition for your Army. You need to get a good little quick victory. And you're getting your chops set up. And then you dive right into the deep end, because that thing will hang over you the longer it exists. And that thing becomes a more and more kind of like devil on your shoulder that's going to be harder to deal with unless you can, chop it off while it's still a baby. You kill the baby devils before they become huge devils.
Okay.
This is, everyone knows this. This is
classic wisdom.
Yeah, every Witcher has to go through this training. So if you do that, not only will you tackle the thing when you have the highest kind of energy and excitement and patience for this project, you will also, when you finish it, you will feel like you're already on the decline. You've done the hardest thing. Now I just need to just keep a plodding, steady pace and keep at it, and I will finish this because I don't have that giant, shadow in the distance that I'm scared of dealing with because I've already done it.
Okay, interesting. Is it part of the uniform for Witchers to also wear bowling shoes?
Yes.
John's wearing bowling shoes today.
I thought maybe we're gonna roll after this.
So there are a lot of differences between painting a large model and also an entire army. Obviously, with a display model, you just have an opportunity to express a lot of creativity without a plan. You can really kind of figure it out on the fly, and it doesn't matter because it's a one-off. And so efficiency is not an important thing at all. You could start down a path, decide that it's not good, and then just pivot, and that's fine. It's you're not concerned with making an efficient paint plan that uses a low amount of paints, uses them in a correct order to best take advantage of like, dark and light colors, where they're positioned on the model, whether they're high up or lower down. Like, you don't care about any of that stuff. Like, it's pure the excess, honestly. Like, anything you want to do to get a result that you want, whether it's cool, whether it's high quality, you just spend the time to do it. And that's not the case with painting an army, at least not when you like really get into the weeds of batch painting and stuff like that. By that point, you have your efficiency kind of dialed in mostly, and maybe you're doing small little tweaks to make it faster, but you have like a really good paint plan that allows you to pump out 10 dudes at like between 30 and 45 minutes a piece. That's kind of like my sweet spot, I think. If I can fall in there for the average grunt of my army, then I'm doing good. For for more special dudes, like a little bit longer is totally fine, but for like your skelebobs or your zombies or your rats, your clan rats, your slaves, I would say maybe even lower for clan rats. When I was chatting with Vince, he was like, his test for whether or not he's spending too much time is, can he finish a project in a day of work? So if he can finish a 10-man unit or whatever, 5-man unit of big chunkers in a day, then he did good. And that can turn out to be between an hour and 2 hours per model, like 4 clan rats. And that seemed like a long time, But, I mean, he gets it done, so who am I to say it's too long?
Yeah, I mean, the answer to this at the end of the day, because we're kind of getting into standard, this question about like, what is the standard?
Yeah, that's another good question to answer.
Is like, the answer is there's no easy answer, and it's totally up to you. You need to understand, though, that you are, no matter what you decide, you are going to sacrifice something. Okay? Because just like you can have something you can have something cheap, you can have something fast, and you can have something good. You can only have 2 of those. It's the same thing. So you're like, all right, I want this to be the most awesome looking army that my skill set is capable of. Okay, then you're going to have to sacrifice your time. Your time is what you're sacrificing here. You're in this reality. You as a person, it's going to cost you more time.
Yeah, and also like, can you spend that time?
Yes.
Are you willing to? That's like a whole other thing. It's not just about the time and do you have it. It's Are you willing to spend it?
Yes, and that's why these questions are important to ask before you start the project, because you have to know what you're getting into, and it has to be obtainable. You have to be able to make that decision and understand what it's going to cost of you and what you need to commit to in order to see it through. And if you have the time because you're that passionate and you really want to do it, and this is something that you've worked out and you can figure it out, then yes. If you want it done as fast as possible, that is also completely doable. What you're going to then have to sacrifice is quality. And are you willing to do that? And so it's a question that you need to kind of ask and figure out your own answer to, but there's no correct answer, right? There's a reason why, there's Best Painted Army Award, and there's reason why slap chop is a popular method, and both exist in the same armies for the same tournament that is played for the same game. Like doesn't mean that one is right and one is wrong. It just means that for what the person wanted for this part of their hobby, that was what their best approach was. So you need to kind of figure it out for yourself. I always say too that it's better that you don't try to commit to too much, because you can always add more steps later. You can always finish this unit and move on to something else and come back and add 1 or 2 more layers of highlights to the skin. Do an edge highlight to all the way around all the armor. You can always do that later. But if you start with all 27 steps on the very first unit, and your goal is, I need this army painted because I really want to have a painted army, go a little easy on yourself and know that you're capable of coming back and boosting it up another level or 2, because it's still going to be painted and it's still going to look fine or good, but it could look great if you decide that that's something that you want to do later. A finished model that's played a game on the table does not mean that that's the way it has to look forever.
100%. That's a thing that I struggle with sometimes, but it depends on your motivation and if you're excited to paint it or not. But you said something that I think I want to mildly disagree with, and that there is no right answer in terms of quality. I think there is a right answer, but it is different for everyone.
Yeah.
And that is, are you finishing the thing?
Yeah.
If you're not, like, if you're hearing what John's saying right now, and you're like, oh, I want to be one of those people that paints a beautiful Space Marine army, and you've tried that and you haven't finished, maybe it's not for you right now, you know? Maybe you should just drop that standard a little bit, have a finished army, understand what the full process looks like, and then come back and try it again. If you're not finishing, then I think your standard is too high. Fair?
Yeah. Yeah. I will say if you're not finishing, or like even if like you haven't gotten to a point where you feel like you could have or should have finished by now, that's not a failure. If you're still, it's a priority and you're still putting hours into it. If it's an active project.
There's progress, of course, yes.
Yes.
Who cares about time?
But you're saying like that, like you had the standard and you got 2 units done and then like
just sat there forever.
Yeah, it's been 4 months and you haven't touched a paintbrush.
Or a year, or like whatever. Yeah.
Whatever that
If you're making progress, if I can take 10 years, I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. You're always working towards it. As long as you're, at the end of a month, or a week or whatever timeline you want to pose, as long as you're closer to finishing the project than you were at the start of the month or the week, then that's a victory.
100%. Yes. But if you are just like dreading it, and if you're discovering like, hey, I'm not really looking forward to painting right now because I feel obligated to paint in a way that I'm not willing to, and you just don't paint because of it, or you paint something else, you gotta see the whole process through to understand.
Be okay with the way that you're comfortable and gets you more apt to sit at the painting desk. Whatever that method of painting is, be happy with that and just do that. And if that gets you to the painting desk, that's the style of painting that you should do for the project.
For sure.
Because we often think that like, if I just paint like the way that I always have painted, but I want to get better, but this is the way that I'm comfortable, and it's just kind of layering, and maybe I do some washes and some contrast paints, and I'm trying to get a little better at edge highlighting. If that's the way that gets you to the paint desk and it doesn't stress you out, then paint that way, because you will get better at painting each of those steps the more you do it. And each of those steps will translate when you decide you're going to try something new, or you decide you're going to try harder, whatever. All of that translates. All of that carries over. So it's the answer that we give to most questions. It's the boring answer, but it's like, as long as you're painting, it works itself out.
Yeah, it kind of does. You don't need to overthink it very much. Yeah. I had a thing I wanted to say, and I fucking forgot it. All right, anyways, there was another question here that's kind of interesting, and I'm curious your policy on it. Should we be worried about getting something on our minis so we don't show up to a game with great units? Jimmy was hanging out with me this past week, and he's one of those people where he personally doesn't want to ever field unpainted things. How do you feel about that? When you play a war game, are you concerned about that? Are you always trying to have stuff painted on the table, or is it not so important?
Well, first of all, for my opponent, I just always go in assuming that's not going to be painted.
Yeah.
And this is not a negative or say it upsets me, because it doesn't upset me at all. And then I get this nice little cool moment of it is painted, and whatever version of painted it is, that's cool. It adds to you kind of getting stuck into the game and getting interested more with the game. So that's great. For myself, I don't hold myself too tight to that, because if it's a matter of the stars align and I finally get to play a game, then whether the stuff's painted or not, I get time to play a game. I want to play the game, So I'm not real hard on myself for that. Where I think it's nice to have that kind of thought process of, if I'm going to play, I want to play with painted stuff, is that's an extra level of encouragement that you're holding yourself to keep painting.
100%.
Yeah. And that is the whole purpose that I think the value that gives, is that you're holding yourself accountable, meaning you're going to spend more times at the hobby desk. And that's perfect.
Yeah. I guess if you don't need that, I don't think you need to really commit to that.
Yes.
I also don't commit to having painted stuff. Honestly, when I'm playing a game, the artistry and the cinematics almost completely go out the window. It all becomes about where I'm putting these figures on the board, how I'm rolling the dice, what the strategy is, and stuff like that. So I'm not going to say it doesn't add to the experience if they are painted and the terrain is painted and all that stuff. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, wow, look at that. okay, now we're going to play. And, it's kind of like now I kind of forget about that. And there are still cool moments where I can take a picture of my models and stuff, but like mostly it's about playing the game. So I don't really care. I don't care at all if my opponent has unpainted stuff, and I don't really care if I don't have painted stuff either, because I know at this point that I'll get to it eventually. If I really care about the game and I keep playing it, I'll paint these models for sure.
I find that the intensity level, the tryhard level of the game is the inverse to how much I appreciate the painted models.
Right, yeah.
The more I'm really trying to win, I'm really focused on strategy, I'm really like making sure that Vince doesn't scoot around the side of the big giant cabbage and destroy all my heroes in one shot. The more that I'm focused on that, the less I give a fuck about what the models look like.
Yeah. 100%.
Which is sucks. I want to be in a headspace more often where I'm like, fuck yeah, that orc unit looks so cool, whatever. But
this is the mental illness we bear, bro.
Yeah, this is it. I need some pills for that.
If you're a display painter or you're an army painter and you want to kind of make the transition over to one side of the fence or end up somewhere in the middle, let's say you have two spectrums where you have the Albert Moreto font of the world and you have the I paint my entire army in one go of the world. How do you meet in the middle? Or how do you make that change, right? I think there's a very clear progression, right? If you're the I paint armies all at the same time, you could try painting a kill team, That is a different level of detail and attention to detail when it comes to painting you could try out. You could paint a single character. That is another way about it you can go. And then from there you can get into the world of painting a display model in, say, 75 millimeter format, which is like the same amount of stuff as a 32 mil, just bigger. And then from there, maybe you go into a bust. Now it's a lot bigger and a lot of details are removed. And as you go through that progression, you will begin to pick up the skills necessary for that particular project. Instead of going from painting an army all at once to painting a 75 millimeter model, that's a huge jump in, I think, skills. But you could progress more granularly through it if you wanted to.
Man, that's good. I don't have anything else to say about that.
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we covered it.
Paint your army, paint your display models.
Just paint it.
Yeah. Okay, last one. You want to read this one?
Did we get the name of we did. Okay, yeah. This one is from Anonymous. This one is quit wasting your hobby time. We talk about all the things we use our hobby time for instead of actually painting. So yeah, what do you do that's ancillary to painting where it's kind of a waste, but there's still progress and information being learned?
Okay, one thing that I'm knee deep in right now, but I found that this has been one of my cruxes for as long as I've painted, is I sit in my hobby space and I look around and try to think of ways to make it more efficient, the space itself, and conducive of productivity.
You're like, how can I shave seconds off my work schedule here?
I could shave. There are literally dozens of us. I'm like, okay. I never am happy with how my paints are organized.
How?
Because
they're so beautiful.
Because I feel like they could be better. I feel like I should be able to close my eyes and have a system that I know where everything is.
Stop fucking moving them.
I know.
You'll remember eventually.
It's not even about them remembering. It's the color order and the way that it works for each different brand and how I break that all down and have them all uniform. Because I've got 18 different kinds of paint.
Stop buying new ones.
I know. I just keep buying them until the space is all full, and then now the space is all full, and now I'm like, I don't like this.
Oh my gosh.
So there's that. There's my drawers. I have right by where on both sides of me where my drawers and my doors are filled with stuff, and that the things that I use most often go on top, and then it becomes piles or becomes unorganized. And where I keep where do I keep my extra paintbrushes? Is that a good spot to keep your paintbrushes, John? But there's also clippers in there. What if the clippers hit a paintbrush? Should the paper clips be right next to the paintbrushes? That's not a good spot for the paper clips. I mean, that's just the shit.
Oh my gosh, dude.
I'm like, I need a microfiber cloth in one of these drawers from when my glasses get dirty or get smudged while I'm painting.
I don't want to have to get up.
Yeah, I don't have to get up. Where should I put that? Should that be by the paintbrush? It's it's bad. I'll sit and if you're a person and you were hiding in my closet in my room, You'd think I'm insane because I sit down at my desk, I turn the painting lights on, whatever, I have my computer monitors up, and I will just sit and I will stare at the wall for like 5 minutes. There's nobody in the room. There's nothing happening. And I just stare because I'm like thinking and processing.
You're like Tony Stark, like fucking 3D computer, like moving things around.
But I'm not physically moving. Like I'm doing it all in
It's
my
all
head.
theater of the mind. Yeah.
It's all in my head about trying to optimize because if I started actually doing it, then I'd be telling myself I'm not getting to the painting.
Oh God, I relate to this so deeply with other things, but man, that's incredible. Sometimes I'm curious if this happens to you. Do you ever like find something that you've stowed away and you're like, oh shit, that's fucking cool. Like I didn't know I had that. Have you ever bought 2 of something?
Yeah.
Because you lost the other thing? Yeah, okay.
I didn't. The more shameful thing is where I didn't even know I owned it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I own this?
Dude, honestly, if you did like a spring cleaning like on your stuff, you probably find a bunch of cool shit that would like end up making it into videos. Because it's like just in the back of a cabinet somewhere. That's 100% me too.
I have this little file cabinet. It's like 3 drawers, IKEA cabinet from when I very first started painting. That's where I put all like my projects like that are like in process. So I'm kit bashing something, or I got it all based on there and primed, and I started painting the skin and all these different things. And I didn't go through it for years, and I was looking for something, and I opened those drawers and I'm like, oh my God, this is the kit bashed corpse cart that I started building like fucking 6 years ago. And you're like, oh wow. It's a time capsule.
It is.
And it's kind of embarrassing.
How
many fucking death cards were in that box?
That is so awesome.
That's the key. You're not actually procrastinating if you just look.
You're not engaging in the activity.
And you don't touch anything.
You're meditating.
Don't start a new project. Don't start moving stuff. Don't start cleaning stuff. Just look at it and think about things.
Oh my God. I get stuck in I did a lot of that thinking when I first set up the office, and then I never fucking did it again. Because I feel that same way. If I spend a moment doing this, it will become an 8-hour day where I'm trying to figure out new solutions for everything. And it's like, oh well, people send me stuff, I gotta have space for the stuff they send me. How does everything get categorized? Dude, yeah, so what I just do is my office slowly becomes more and more disorganized until I decide to spend a full 8-hour workday figuring out a new policy. And it's like, well, when am I moving out of here? You know, is it really worth it? Like I don't know.
Yeah, that's the other thing is like you're often trying to find solutions to problems that you don't have, right? So if you're like, is this really an issue? Is this really a problem?
Yeah.
I 100% feel, and I bet most hobbyists do too, is the biggest catalyst for time suck is just the increased amount of physical objects that you keep bringing in. More kits, more paints, more tools, more this, that, the other. And then you have to I either have to find space, I need to declutter, I need to reorganize. I got these things that we saw from Daz that are that the sprues fit into, those little cubes. Remember he had those in his house, and he just had open sprues in these like cloth cube things.
I thought he literally put them in drawers.
They're in these cubes.
Oh, like the ones that fit in the Kallax unit?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Sure. Yeah.
Because those are like the tank sprue like fits perfect, or you can go too deep on the others. Anyway, so I'm like, man, I actually would save so much space for all these boxes of kits that I have built and painted a couple of things out of, but I still have the big GW boxes that they're all in. And I already organized and keep all of the instructions on how to build and everything for everything. And I have a separate folder that's all decals, and I have a separate bag for all my GW bases and stuff. I'm like, I could reorganize all those sprues in some kind of a way. I bought a label maker. I've been fucking labeling everything in my house right now, dude. It's so good. I can use it from my phone. I could be printing something on my label maker right now, dude. It's so great.
It's internet connected, dude.
Yeah, dude.
What the hell?
We got apps for that. So
you can print fucking what's that stupid font that looks ridiculous?
Wingdings.
It's a fucking illegible bullshit. Okay, yeah, sure, that one.
Yeah, I just print out Wingding stuff and put it on random things in my house. Looks like I can read hieroglyphs. Yeah, yeah, that's it. Like it's that kind of thing. It's like, okay, I'm trying to be more efficient with my space, and that's good. But I often find that, here's my pro tip for the day. You can maximize your painting time at the desk, your short windows of time where you can hobby. You can maximize those by offloading all of the thought process, all of the things you want to change in your space, all of the extraneous shit. Use that in those times in your life when you don't have something important to think about.
Like on a car ride.
On a car ride.
While you're trying to sleep. That's a great time to think about that stuff, actually.
At work. I miss so much regular day job, how much hobby and project shit I could get done and plan.
Bro, I learned how to use, this feels so fucking bad, Adobe InDesign so I could make the original quick reference guide for the Duchess at work.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to do this when I'm making a YouTube video.
No, I got shit to do at home. When you're knee deep in it, all the things you can, because there are certain things you can only do in your space, your hobby space. Maximize those things, then offload the other things to your brain for you to figure out later.
Yeah.
And that way, when you're like, okay, I made a decision about how I'm going to redo my paints or where I'm going to put my paintbrushes, I've got that all figured out. So it's going to take me way less time when I'm in my space, and I'm just going to do it.
Keep hobby time for the actual painting.
Yeah. Yeah. Because believe you me, I know you. I know how little work you actually get done at work.
Yeah.
Just take that time instead of like scrolling through the Instagram on your phone while you're pooping for 40 minutes on the clock.
4 times a day.
4 times a day. And make your brain and like use the notes system on your phone and like make a list of things that are like, all right, these are the things I need to figure out. And for my hobby that aren't active hobby projects that I'm working on, and let me figure these out over the course of the next week or month or whatever. And then I can just act on them when I'm in the space.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I did that more.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm going to have answers that are similar to yours, but just kind of like a different skin, essentially. Whenever I involve an extra tool in the process, I always get really hung up on that tool. So, like, if I want to make a custom decal or a mask, I have to use Adobe Illustrator, which has, like, all of these settings that I'm trying to fine-tune. So I have the highest DPI and the best accuracy. And then I have the printer, which also has like these settings that are important, like DPI, dots per image, and resolution. Then I have to somehow export it with the right kind of SVG file so that my Cricut can understand it. And I need to like have the right kind of adhesion on that little cutting mat so that the thing sticks down to it and it doesn't like get like ripped up when the cutter head moves over it. I need to figure out the cutting pressure, so I actually cut through the tape on the first pass and isn't caught in corners and ends up tearing. There are like so many like, or like 3D printing is an amazing one too. There's a bazillion fucking things you can get hung up on if you want to, and I love to get hung up on details.
Yeah.
I really am quite nuclear with a lot of my solutions. I want everything to be the best all the time, and like that comes down to the videos, that comes down to the script writing. I spend literally 8 hours, a full work day, writing a script for like a 30-minute video. It's shorter if it's a shorter video, but for like 30 minutes, if I want to like organize all my footage, label it all, you know, even put certain areas where I'm going to put certain clips in. Like if I say something funny on camera, I want the script to dovetail into that, right? And so I need to know, oh, that's that clip. I said something funny. What's a funny thing I can say to preface that joke? I need to know that clip exists. So I need to watch that clip, hear that audio, and be able to make a choice. And if you go that crazy, then it takes a long time. And so like whenever there's, you know, anything extra that's not miniature painting, I really get lost in the weeds because I feel like when you really do one skill for a long time, you go through this maturity cycle where you kind of realize it doesn't need to be awesome all the time. But if you're just at the beginning of learning a new skill, if you're a fucking tryhard like me, you want it to be amazing all the time, but you don't have the skill to really understand how to accomplish that. But you still fucking try, you know, and you waste a bunch of time. And so, yeah, any extra tool or process outside painting that I'm not like super familiar with, I spend all the time I need to get like the outcome that I want, and that is a huge waste of time.
Yeah, I often feel like it wasn't a fruitful investment.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
The investment of my time, and then when I look at what was the outcome of that time, that's where I will often get frustrated, where I'm like, I spent all this time just trying to figure out these couple of settings so my DaVinci Resolve would save the proxy footage to the right spot, and I don't have to go in and every time I do a new video and relink it and all this, like, and I spent like 4 hours trying to just figure out this one tiny thing, and I'm like, you know how many videos I'd have to make for that extra 10 seconds that I'm spending to do these 3 extra clicks? How many videos I have to make that 4 hours back?
Yeah.
Was it worth it?
Yeah.
It's just like its efficiency is in just like being efficient in the work you do, or like, you know, projects around the house and cleaning and all that kind of stuff. It's the same thing with your hobby time. It's like you're trying to make the most of it and be efficient with it. But you don't want it to feel like work either. You know, I don't want to feel like I've got to optimize my hobby. It's the whole point of a hobby is for it to relax and to be fun and all that stuff.
Oh yeah. How often do you relax and have fun with the hobby?
I will say when it's a day that I know, I know today on my calendar, my work calendar, is I get to paint for 8 hours a day. As long as it's not like having to like the stress of painting to a like extremely high level. I enjoy that.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that. But it's very hard to find extra time in the evenings where it's like, I'm just going to relax and paint and stuff.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I totally agree with you. When there is not an impending deadline, and like I just know it's a hobby day, like that is the fucking coolest feeling. There were several days like that when painting the Razor Wing. But toward the end, then it was like, okay, I can feel the heat. Like I need to finish this video now. But like in the middle, it was like I'm just doing all these weird, wacky things and trying them out, and I'm just doing it all day long, and that feels amazing for sure.
Yeah, it feels like a good use of time.
Yeah.
Well, those are the 3 tidbits, tiddly biddlies that we're gonna munch on.
We already munched.
And we're gonna spit them out. We're gonna spit out the gristle. And we just sucked all the juices, and we're gonna spit out the gristle.
Not one of your better analogies. Anyways, now that we're done with the main topic, we're going to get into the after party. But if you're not one of those cool patrons, we'll see you right now. Welcome to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out all the way to the end. If you enjoy the podcast and John's bowling shoes and his Dorothy-esque heel clicking, and you want to
Sexy caps
support it so that John can get more of these illustrious shoes, there are several ways to do that. You can watch our podcast on YouTube with ads enabled. We play an ad every 30 minutes, and that helps us out. Gets us a little bit more of that CTM dollary dues. You can also share our podcast with your friends. You can give us a rating wherever you're listening to the podcast. Those are all great ways to not spend money and support us. If you got some cash to spend, Patreon's a great place. You get access to an extended episode, chatting about things like new techniques we tried out, failed and succeeded at, models from other painters we love, and giving feedback to our patrons. Like I mentioned last time, also as a patron, you have the opportunity to give us a topic to discuss. Today we answered 3 questions from 3 different people. And you put your name in there, we also credit you. Lastly, we have some merch linked down in the description from Teespring, various t-shirts in 3 different designs, cups, joggers, Speedos,
Flagons,
Flagonsvale, all that good stuff.
Fruit bats,
Fruit bats,
breakfast cereals,
like an animal?
really small rocks.
Tiny marbles.
Yeah. A newt. I got better.
Monty Python.
All right. That's all the quotes that we have for today, and we will be back not next Monday, but the Monday after that. Until then, we'll catch you on the
Flippity flop.